questions for our older kids are going to get us into the 10 Commandments finally. So we start off at the beginning of this catechism in the orange section that talks about the big questions of life, right? Where do we come from? How can we know that there's a God? What is his purpose for us? Why did he make us in the first place, right? And then if we can establish that there is a God, what do we know about him? What can we believe about him? So the yellow section goes through the creed, right? Those 12 articles of faith, things that we can know about God for certain that cover the basis of the faith, right? So if we know that there's a God and we know what we believe about him, how are we supposed to live that, right? So the first section of that is the orange section, or the sacraments, these liturgical encounters with God, ways for God to get inside of us, things that we can do to actually get close to this God that we believe in. But then what do we do with our actual lives outside of a liturgical setting? That's this blue section on the 10 Commandments, right? And so it's going to talk to us a bit in general about the 10 Commandments in general, and then the last questions here are going to focus on the very first and most important commandment. You should only have one God, the real God, right? And what's interesting about these commandments, and what I love about this catechism's approach to them, is every commandment, it's going to talk about what this commandment means and how you keep it, but it's also going to talk about what this commandment protects us from. Because that's what rules do, right? Parents, you know this. The reason your kids aren't allowed to play in a busy street is because you don't want them to get hit by a bus, right? You want to protect them. Rules are there to protect us. So why does God give us rules? What is he protecting us from? This first commandment, he wants us to know who he is and not fall for some fake God, right? In the ancient world, and maybe even in the modern world, people would sometimes worship rocks and sticks and trees and things like that. We had a wrong idea of who the real God was, right, and is. God is not a rock. God isn't a statue, as beautiful as a statue might be. God isn't a spring of water or a wind or the force or anything like that, right? God is much bigger than anything that's created. So he wants us to have the right idea of what is God in the first place. Who is he? What is he about? But secondly, God doesn't want to sell us short, right? And so in the modern world, we don't necessarily worship rocks and sticks and trees anymore. We tend to worship things like money and popularity and people liking us and promotion and status and all that sort of stuff. And what God is trying to tell us with this commandment is those things are not God. They're not ultimately going to satisfy. And we all have experienced this when we're honest with ourselves. We recognize, right? I get the promotion and I'm excited for a while, and then I realize, like, there's got to be more than this, right? Your favorite team wins the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup or the World Series or whatever, and you're excited for a day, and then, a couple weeks later, you're like, well, it'd be nice if we win another one, right? None of this stuff satisfies. You really, really, really want that toy for Christmas, and then you get it, and it's exciting for a while, and you like having it, and then you realize it doesn't actually make me happy, right? That's because none of these things are God. And that's what God is trying to protect us from with this commandment, is to recognize the only thing that will make us happy in a lasting sort of way is God, and recognizing who he is.